Last night, Riot revealed Twisted Fate, one of the Bilgewater champions, and I was originally planning on doing the kind of reveal and review video after he was revealed last night, but I ended up taking some time to just digest him mechanically, and I'm really happy that I did because my initial gut reaction was not very favorable, but now that I've had time to sleep on it, I've really kind of come around. So I'm going to put a graphic up that first showcases just Twisted Fate and the abilities relative to him, and then we'll have a second graphic covering the other cards after the fact. So this is Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is a 4-cost Bilgewater champion. He's a 2/2 with quick attack and has play a Destiny card. Now, the 3 Destiny cards that you get to play are listed below, and I'll cover those in a moment. Twisted Fate levels up when he has seen you draw 8 or more cards. And when he levels up, he gets the standard +1/+1, so he becomes a 3/3. And then he says, the first 3 times I see you play a card each round, I play a Destiny card. So Twisted Fate here is all about the Destiny cards and what they do, because that is the key to making him be successful. Now, the Destiny cards come in one of 3 flavors. There's a red card, a gold card, and a blue card. Again, should be pretty obvious that those would be the choices if you're a fan of League of Legends, because that's his whole gimmick. So red card deals 1 damage to all enemies in the enemy nexus. Gold card deals 2 and stuns the strongest enemy. And blue card refills 1 spell mana and you draw 1. First of all, from a flavor standpoint, I love the way Twisted Fate was implemented because, again, this is very specific to how the champion feels in League. So players who play League, if they come in and they play Twisted Fate, it's going to be a lot like the character they love. Now, as I said before, my initial reaction was not really favorable. I was really hung up on this 2 health, and if I'm being honest, I still kind of am, but I looked at this and I said, this is a 4-cost that's going to die to a Mystic Shot, and that's it, right? Why do I want to play a 4-cost that's just going to die to Mystic Shot and do nothing else for me? But the more that I've thought about it, the more I've realized the kind of deck that wants to play Twisted Fate is one likely with a lot of cheap cards, a lot of cheap answers, and a lot of, obviously, card draw because of his level up condition. And I've realized that he is a toolbox card himself that turns into an engine that lets you keep toolboxing to close out a game. So when you look at his cards, like, they're incredibly versatile. Don't need anything right now? Pick the blue card. I draw a card. It goes towards leveling him up because it's a play effect, which means when that skill resolves, he'll already be in play. Do they have a really big minion or enemy that I need to stall? Things like standalone decks? Great, I'll stun it. Buy myself some time. Are they an aggro deck going wide? Sweet, I'll hit the red card. This is cheaper than Withering Whale anyway. There's a lot of flexibility to his skills, and then again, like, once you level him up, being able to choose these 3 times a turn is massive. Just red card alone, getting that to go off 3 times, not counting anything that potentially buffs your damage. And we've already seen things like Powder Keg, and, you know, there are some similar effects that are floating around. Like, that's massive. Being able to do stuff like that potentially 3 times a turn is huge. And again, if you don't need to do that, being able to play a card, any card, and then also refill 1 spell mana and draw 1 card on top of it 3 times a turn, like, that's a pretty insane engine. So yes, Twisted Fate certainly has a drawback, and his health is a really big drawback. I would love to see this card be a 2/3 just because he has to see you draw the 8 cards. You know, I think about Yasuo, who at 3 health, and he didn't even need to see you do the stunning or recalling. It took a lot for him to start seeing play. So Twisted Fate coming down on 4 and then surviving for 8+ draws with only 2 health is a tall order. I think it's going to be pretty difficult to level him up, but I think it will be incredibly satisfying when you do. And I do think that there will be decks that can likely do that. I think that, you know, the obvious home is Piltover and Zaun with him, because you're going to have a number of draw effects, a number of removal options. My biggest issue with that, though, is I haven't seen much in Bilgewater yet that protects cards, as in like boosts to health. And I think that that is also a bit of a requirement with Twisted Fate, because man, that 2 health is so low. Even if you never enter combat, like you could accidentally die to like a Withering Wail and a Vile Feast or something. So I don't know. I think that that is the biggest hill to climb for Twisted Fate, is the health portion. Outside of that, I really like him. You know, I say Piltover and Zaun. I could see Ionia being another spot where he could land. You got a lot of combat tricks to keep him alive. You know, Twin Disciplines is great. You could slap Jeweled Protector's buff on him, and then he suddenly becomes really intimidating. I don't know. I think that his payoff is difficult to obtain on purpose, because again, once you've leveled him up, what he enables you to do in any given deck is kind of absurd. Now, obviously, if they're going to show off a card like this, there's going to be some additional ways to potentially level him up. So I've got a second graphic with the other cards that were revealed, and we're going to transition to that now. And we're going to start with Pick a Card. So Pick a Card is a 3-cost burst spell. You shuffle a card from hand into your deck, and then you draw 3 fleeting cards at next round start. So 3 is a pretty low cost for a draw 3, but it's not a true draw 3 because you have to spend both Pick a Card and shuffle 1 back. So you're spending 2 to draw 3, and they're fleeting. So in that regard, it does feel a bit balanced, more so than just a straight up, you know, pay 3 mana, draw 3 cards. But that being said, this is a really powerful card even in non-Twisted Fate decks. And in Twisted Fate decks, it's huge, because if he's on the board, you're halfway to leveling him up if this resolves, because you're going to draw your natural 1 for the round, and then you're going to draw the 3 additional fleeting cards, and that's 4. That's halfway to leveling Twisted Fate up. That's pretty quickly. So this is a card that I think you almost have to run if you're playing Twisted Fate. The fact that it's burst is nice, and the fact that it's exactly 3 is nice, because you can blow your spell mana on it at the end of the turn if, you know, your opponent has spent their mana, and you don't have to worry about playing around anything else. You just, you know, you pick whatever card is currently dead in your hand, you shuffle it in, and you just try to use up your fleeting stuff next turn. But again, it gets you halfway to leveling him up. That's huge. Now, the other card they revealed was Pool Shark. This is a 1-cost 1/2 that says when I'm summoned, you draw 1 fleeting next round. So this is like the cheap version of Pick a Card. And I also just want to say that this is, in my opinion, one of those 1-drops that's not really a 1-drop. The likelihood of you playing this on 1 is low, because you want to play it after you've played Twisted Fate, and also you're taking a pretty big gamble that whatever you draw is going to cost 2 or less. Otherwise, it's just going to go to waste next round if you don't play said fleeting card. The stat line is okay. I don't think it really matters. This is all about the effect. I think the one thing you can say nice about it is it means you could block a spider and live. But again, like, you're not really playing Pool Shark for the body. I mean, it's nice that you can use him to chump block something, right? Being able to draw an extra card and then also block just a general attack is nice. But what I mean is he really doesn't matter if he's a 1/2, a 1/1, or even honestly like a 1/3. You know, the attack I think matters more on a 1-drop, just because in most cases for your 1-drops you're expecting them to like do one thing and die, and Pool Shark's thing is on summon, so that's it for him. Now, Brash Gambler here is the definition of a gamble card, right? This is high risk, high reward. This is a 4-cost 4/5, but to play her, you have to discard 2 cards, and then on attack, you draw 2 fleeting. The 4/5 stat line is nice because it means you're more likely to survive traditional damage-based removal. And that's key, because if you're discarding 2 to play her, you want to be able to draw 2 immediately. But that doesn't mean she's immune to disruption. She is at the same cost as, say, like Will of Ionia. So if you discard 2 to play her and then she gets bounced, it's going to feel really terrible. Also, the first turn you play her, even if you get the attack off, if you're playing her on curve, you're not likely going to be able to play much. I mean, you might have some spell mana banked, but of that, 2 cards that you have drawn that have fleeting, you might be able to play 1. So you're not really getting the benefit from her until even the following round, at least in terms of like on curve play. Now, if you play her later in the game, things are a little bit different, but the later you play her, the more likely somebody is to also have some sort of disruption tool or answer. I mean, even things that just stun her, for example, right? I was trying to think about like stall tools that don't necessarily mean bouncing her or removing her outright. Something like Guile is still pretty devastating because you've discarded 2 cards and you are locked out in an attack, and then next round, unless you have a rally effect, you don't get to attack with her, and then the round after that, now they've had additional chances to draw a potential answer. So she's all about immediate value, right? You want to play her and get to use your draw 2 to make up for the 2 you've discarded. And if she sticks around, then she can become an insane value engine, drawing 2 over and over and over again. But there's still, even with the 4/5 stat line, a fair number of ways you can disrupt her and prevent the attack. So very much, in my opinion, a risk-reward card. I like the design. I think that it's pretty well balanced. And I think that overall, this is going to generate some neat highlight reels where, you might draw 6 cards in a turn with her and some rally effects, and also some highlight reels where your opponent discards 2 and she gets bounced, and then the next time she's played, they discard 2 and she gets bounced, and then somebody concedes. So anyway, the card is neat. It's fun. I like it. But we're going to move on to the last card, and I put this card last for a reason. This is Black Market Merchant. Now, you can't see it in this card art, but I've been joking since the art was revealed that this was going to end up being like Mud Crab Merchant. And if you come from the Elder Scrolls Legends, that's probably causing some, bad memories, or good if you really liked the card. If you don't come from the Elder Scrolls Legends, there was a card named Mud Crab Merchant that had an element of RNG, and it was a very playable 1-drop, and it caused a lot of headaches for a long time. And I was making the comparison based on the art because behind this thing is a crab with a bunch of wares on it. So I was like, oh, it's a crab that sells things. We're getting Mud Crab Merchant again. Now, turns out I was half right because this card is very similarly designed to a different card from the Elder Scrolls Legends. So Black Market Merchant says, when you draw an enemy card, reduce its cost by 1. It's a 2/2 for 2, and it says plunder, draw 1 from the enemy deck. So this is very similar to Thieves Guild Shadowfoot from the Elder Scrolls Legends, which also let you draw a card from the enemy deck. And that card was very hated. It caused a lot of heated discussions. And the reason it caused so many heated discussions was because if you played any sort of combo deck and somebody was drawing your combo pieces, then you would just lose the game outright. And what made things worse is Elder Scrolls Legends had the legendaries are unique deck building requirement, very similar to Hearthstone as well. So if you had a key legendary that your deck was built around and you could only run 1 copy of it because it was a legendary, having your opponent just get lucky by top decking from your deck the 1 card you built your deck around, it was a really feels bad moment. And also exacerbating those, feelings of hatred was the fact that you had no idea what card your opponent drew from your deck. Like, they would draw it, but it wasn't a face-up draw. So you had to play through the entire rest of the game not knowing if somebody, had drawn your card. So, like, for example, if you're playing Doomcrag Warrior in Elder Scrolls Legends, that deck is entirely based around 1 card called Journey to Sovngarde, and if your opponent drew it from your deck, there was nothing you could do. And you had to play through the game anyway because you had no idea if they drew it. So Black Market Merchant, it's going to draw directly from your opponent's deck. Like, I talked to somebody I know at Riot. They confirmed that is how it works. So, like, for example, if you're one of those control decks that runs like 1 copy of Ledros, and somebody plays Black Market Merchant and they steal your Ledros, that's it. Like, your Ledros is stolen. They have drawn it from your deck. Now, the one thing that makes it a little bit more bearable here is that Legends of Runeterra does not have the, like, legendary cards are a one of deck building requirement. So unless you are purposefully choosing to run something as a one of, it's not likely that that's going to happen too often, but it's still going to suck, and it's still going to make a lot of people pretty angry when it happens. And this is just a really powerful card. It's a little bit harder to pull off because of the plunder requirement, but Bilgewater has a number of tools in their arsenal to get plunder to go off anyway right now, so I don't see that being that big of a drawback. The 2/2 for 2 stat line, I think, is good enough. Like, you're not happy with a 2/2 for 2, but the effect here is so powerful. Not only are you drawing a card, but it's going to have its cost reduced, and you're drawing a card from your opponent's deck, potentially disrupting any of their synergies, and then also potentially just getting a good card yourself, or even just denying them from, you know, finding that finisher that they wanted to find against you. Like, this is a really powerful effect. Do not discount how powerful this is. This card is going to see some play, and it's going to drive some people nuts. There will be Reddit threads about this. Just trust me, I've lived through this experience once before. It's going to be wild. So that's it for the cards revealed. And I don't know what else to say other than I'm really looking forward to the Reddit threads for Black Market Merchant. I want to see how people utilize Twisted Fate and his draw engine. And I want to know, you know, what you guys think. Are you excited for Twisted Fate? Do you think that the 2 health will be too big of a drawback? Is there any decks that you think he'll slot into naturally? I don't know. I want to hear from you. Now, as I'm filming this, you know, on the 27th, I know that Miss Fortune is going to be revealed today as well. So there will be a video going up after she's revealed. Keep an eye out for that. And then I also know that at some point today, we're supposed to be given the dump of all of the cards that were not yet revealed, and depending on how late in the day that happens, I will try to do a video covering all the stuff that we have not yet seen. So if you made it this far, thanks. I appreciate you. And, you know, until the Misfortune video later today, thanks for watching.